This week's demonstration is brought to you in association with busyknits.com, the online craft social network.
Hello and welcome to the Crafts channel. Today we have a demonstration by Corinne Bradd on how to get creative using Backstitch. So,
hi Chelsea.
You all right?
Yeah, not so bad, thanks.
Good.
Yeah, Backstitch is one of those things, it's probably a stitch that you learn when you're very, very young and then you just think it's for, you know, mending seams. But of late there's been a trend of sort of embroidered decorations around the home.
Yeah.
You can stitch onto virtually any surface that you can get a needle through.
Okay.
So we've got some examples there. There's just a simple canvas with a little phrase on it that could go up in a bedroom.
That's lovely.
Little lavender bag, I've done a couple of pictures and we've stitched onto some envelopes and that's what I'm going to be showing you today. Because envelopes like these, you know, it's quite nice to, if you're going to spend time making a card and then you just stick it in a plain white envelope, it looks really dull and boring. There's some beautiful papers available, like these die cuts with a view papers that we've used. And some of them, because they've got a design in one corner of them, because they're designed for scrapbooking, if you place your template, your envelope template on there, you can make sure that you've got a lot of the pattern on the front and it just makes it look so much more attractive.
It really does, doesn't it?
So I'll show you how to do that, but before we move on to that, I was just going to show you one other thing, because I've got friends that have seen embroidery that I've done and things like that, and oh, I'd love to do that, but I haven't got the time and I haven't got the patience. There's a really simple trick. This notebook that we've done here, all of that is just in Backstitch, and what I've done is I've used different colours of Backstitch for different parts of the bird. There's a lot of bird-themed things in my demonstrations lately.
They're pretty, that's why.
But then what I've done is, from a distance, it looks like it's a complete picture. All I've done is I've used watercolour pencils, but dry watercolour pencils, and I've just coloured in the gaps, so that you've got a stitched feel to it, and it's, you know, it's very tactile, but you've got more colour in it than if you'd just done a normal Backstitch.
Yeah.
It's the same with that envelope that I've done there on the map.
That's
I've
great.
highlighted the monogram.
Love that one.
And you could send them through the post. What you'd need to do is make sure that you just cut out a nice, you know, rounded corner rectangle of paper for you to write the address on, so you can pop it in there and they can read it. But it's so much nicer to receive a pretty envelope like that.
I know.
But
it's not
making
the cards
envelopes
that are pretty,
yeah,
isn't
this is it. But you know, and the other thing is also, if you're sending money or a voucher, it's like a gift in itself, then, isn't it? It looks much nicer. Envelope templates you can download online, or if you can do what I did, which is simply open up an envelope of the size of your choice, draw around it, cut it out in card, and use it as your template. I've then cut this out of a stripy paper.
That's cool.
And then you simply use a scoreboard and bone folder to score down from dip to fold in to make your envelope. Okay?
Great.
I'm going to do a very simple monogrammed letter A. You can get monogram templates. There's some lovely easy alphabet templates you can get.
Yeah.
I've actually got a die cut machine that's got an alphabet set on it, and I've just simply used this. So I'm going to pop this in the bottom left hand corner and then just draw around your template with a pencil. You can rub the pencil lines out afterwards, but a lot of the time you find that the lines are covered up with your stitching.
Okay.
And I tend to use ordinary embroidery cottons, but I only use 3 strands of them at a time, because if you use the full 6 strands, your embroidery can get quite lumpy. And also it's really difficult to get it through a hole in the paper because it's that much bulkier, and you risk ripping it.
Yeah.
So once you've drawn your initial, this is a foam mat. This is a foam mat that's designed for paper pricking. Just pop it underneath. It's just to save your work surface. Get a needle tool and then just make a series of holes along these pencil lines. Don't put them too close together, because what you will find is when you pull your stitching and you pull your stitching taut, it can rip it, I mean, these are, say, scrapbook papers that I use, and they're quite a decent weight. They're not so heavy that you would struggle to get the needle tool through it, but they're not flimsy. They hold their shape well, and they hold the stitching really, really well. Just going to carry all the way up here. I won't prick all of this because it will take time. Okay. Find a thread. You want something that doesn't contrast starkly with your colour of paper, but it will show up on the colour of paper well.
Notice more.
I mean, the envelope that I did there, the colours virtually matched the envelope, and actually it was a mistake because it was such a busy pattern. You can't really see it.
Yeah.
But something like this Linny envelope, you've got plain white on a red background,
That works beautifully.
Yeah, and again, I've found the main pattern in the scrapbook paper and made sure I've cut my template out to accommodate that pattern. Three strands of embroidery thread. Put a double knot in the end of it so it doesn't go through your paper pricked hole. And then just start. And it's just like those cards. Oh, you're probably too young to remember it, actually. When I was a kid, you used to get sewing cards, and they were little pictures of dogs with holes in, and you used to get a shoelace, and you used to do running stitch through them. And it taught me how to sew, really.
That's great.
So your first stitch, you would start as a running stitch, but then go back through this third hole here, again like you would running stitch. But instead of then moving on to the fourth hole, go back into the second.
Oh, I see.
So you're going back on yourself.
Not getting any gaps there.
No. And it looks, from this side, it looks like a machine stitch, you know, that you would have on a sewing machine. When you're doing embroidery, you can actually utilise the fact that you go back on yourself and you can work this stitch in reverse on a piece of embroidery. To get a nice, I mean, you tend to use it for vines and things like that, so you've got nice flowing curves on it.
Yep.
So we'll just keep sewing like this. You go right to the end, and one thing my mother always taught me, which is you need to make sure that the back of your work is as neat as the front of your work. And I know it's really quite fussy of me, but it, you know, especially if you've got an envelope, it's much nicer that, you know, the back is just as neat.
Yeah,
and
no,
when
it's a great tip.
when you're embroidering on canvas or on fabric, another reason to make sure that the back of your work is as neat is if you were to take a thread and you were to spread it over to this bit here, and you know the back of your work was really untidy, then you'd see it through the material.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure it's neat so that it doesn't show any untidy bits. You see that little heart cherub? If you can just fetch him over. Because that's a plain white cotton, if I'd put threads and I'd run out of thread here, and then I'd gone down here, and then I'd remembered I'd missed a bit, so I'd moved the thread over, you'd end up with crisscrossing lines at the back of it, and by the time you'd stuffed it, you'd see the work, and you'd see it really badly. But this is the simplest way to decorate an envelope. You can do it with handwriting. I mean, that hello envelope that's just down there.
Yeah, that's nice. I like that. It's quite contemporary,
very modern,
isn't it?
We don't do a lot of stuff with black, actually, you know, when we do demonstrations. But, you know, that, if you had like a black tie event that you wanted to invite somebody to, it's really quite striking.
Yeah, that is.
And that was just drawn on there freehand with a white pencil.
Oh, right.
And then I pricked it, and then I did rub the white pencil out just in case, because with it being black, you don't want any marks to show up on it.
No. It's
So
really effective.
when you've completed it, you simply fold your envelope up like a normal envelope, put a couple of bits of tape here and here to secure it, pop your letter in, seal it down. You could get a little decorative seal on the back of it.
Yeah, that'd be a nice touch.
And it's just a nice, a decorative way of sending a letter, something a bit special, something a bit extra to give someone. And then once you've mastered Backstitch, and you know, doing it on card is so easy because you don't need an embroidery frame, the card stays still, you can then move on to embroidering a canvas.
Yeah, that's
Which you can just go straight through the canvas, and the actual wood frame on the canvas holds the material straight for you. If you're going to do it on a loose piece of fabric that you're then going to stitch onto something else, do use an embroidery frame, because it keeps the material nice and taut, and it makes sure that your stitches don't pucker the material up.
Okay. Yeah.
But a lot of the time, even if you find that it's a bit puckered, by the time you give it a good press with a steam iron, ironing smooths everything out. But yeah, Backstitch is really a very simple way to make something that looks a lot more interesting.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for that, Corinne. And don't forget to subscribe to the Crafts channel if you want to keep up to date on the exciting projects that we've got coming up. Thanks so much.